joined as always by our friend Bridger, all around us, above us, inside of us, talking to us from the heavens. So today is our third Hobby Hangout. Really excited to bring something a bit different than what we've been working on previously. I have for you today one of the most dubious challenges for painters out there. Whether you've worked with it a lot or you hardly just started painting, yellow is one of those colors that's it's tough. It takes a lot of work, takes a lot of care, and it's really easy to mess up. So I'm really excited to work on that today. I love yellow, especially since I did figure out how to paint it. As always, this kind of comes with the caveat that this is what works for me. I know that people use different techniques, and we'll talk a bit about that. But this is the yellow that I've been working on for the last few years. I've been doing my Imperial Fist, the Genestealer culture like that, my Bad Moons, my Gloomspite Gits. So there is a bit of a theme of kind of a dirtier yellow. But overall, I really like this for this bright, strong color. So yeah, without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. So I have today, let's go to the close-up camera, this custom Patriarch, which I just put together a little while ago and had a ton of fun converting him. I just wanted this action pose fighting these Marines and wanted to just have him kind of impaling them and then having them all fall back. The actual model itself, you can see, I just did a couple tweaks. I was able to actually stretch out the tail spike thing and kind of get that into a position where he's less hunched down. Originally, I was interested in trying to have him actually stand up straight. He's actually super tall, but quickly realized that this would be way cooler. So I have that, and then this head, I have a confession. I actually finished this conversion a week or two ago, and then I saw on Instagram, I apologize, I cannot remember the name of the user, but they did this awesome conversion with this arm from the Necromunda Nurgle, I don't know, they're like ogre guys. I can't actually remember the name of them. One of their arms is basically a squid head. And so they had that attached to the Patriarch head, and I was like, that's amazing. I have the kit, of course, in my my bits box, waiting. I knew that it was going to be great for something one day, and that was the day. And so yeah, attach that there. I'm really excited to paint all the details in this. And these bodies, which I think will end up being Ultramarines, we might get to that today, are from the Horus Heresy Dead Bodies set, which is an awesome set. If you ever are doing a order from Forge World, I would definitely consider buying one or two of these. And I just kind of have them for use on random projects. And so they're kind of falling back. One of them is beheaded. And they have cool little injury wounds that are not always easy to replicate. So that's the model. That's the conversion itself. And yeah, we'll go ahead and get started.
I'm pretty excited.
I can't wait.
Just knock my socks off every time.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I love doing conversions. I can't get enough of it. That was like one of the first things I did when I started playing was just chopping things off, gluing them on, putting like stupid bits where they shouldn't be, and we got there eventually. So yeah. Okay, so just to show you a couple ideas of what the final product is going to look like. So this one I actually did not paint. This is my friend Izzy had painted this. My Genestealer Cult army originally was Jeff in Control Robinson's, good friend of mine, and unfortunately when he passed, I took the collection, and so I have this really iconic look that he had for his Tyranids, which was this bright yellow, really strong colors, and then this black. Anywhere you went, if you saw these at a tournament, you knew immediately those were Jeff's. And so I had sort of this difficult challenge of recreating it. And I did a few of his GSC for him actually at the time, so I knew a little bit about how to paint them. But this is just this awesome Patriarch, and it kind of gives me a baseline for it. Going to be doing some fun stuff with the black here. I might change that up so they're easily distinguishable in conversation. And then the other thing I wanted to show you guys, which you've seen if you've also been on the stream before, are my Imperial Fists. So what we have here, trying to get closer, there we go, they're so tiny, is very similar, but you can see it's on a smooth surface. So this same technique actually works relatively well, whether it be something that's organic like the Tyranids, or something that's super slick like Space Marines. Some of the biggest differences come from where you actually apply different gradients and how you do a wash. And of course, we'll get to that very soon. Cool. So let's go ahead and do it. So yellow is sort of the overarching topic for today, but we also have my fine friend, the airbrush. And this will hopefully be a bit of an intro for those of you who haven't airbrushed. If you have airbrushed and you've had some experiences with it that could be helpful, let us know. I'm always down to hear people's horror stories. Bridget and I were exchanging a few beforehand. It's been a long, hard journey getting here with the airbrush. A lot of broken tools, a lot of Bosch materials, but it's really nice to have. Okay, so I have my model, prime black, ready to go. The first thing we're going to do is we're just going to do the undercoating. And this is an extremely important part of painting yellow. In fact, let me walk you through the steps real quick. Luckily, in our Easy Bake Oven, is that what we're doing, Bridger?
Easy Bake Oven.
That's right. We have basically the process. So to do yellow, it, for me, consists of about 4 steps. First step, you want to make sure that your model is as bright as possible. So if your model is going to be primarily yellow, it really pays off to prime them white. I prime my Imperial Fists. Most of the Gene Stealers I will prime in white, but this guy, because he had these other details and other characters, actually ended up being black. But generally speaking, get a strong white base. So here we have a town model that I've primed completely white, and actually just basically started adding the first undershading. And undershading is a technique where we essentially apply these shading below the layers that are going to be the final color, right? So here you can see I have orange. And orange for me is actually my personal secret to painting yellow. I basically take the airbrush and I hit it from one side, whether it be armor plating or gun, whatever it might be, and actually just give it this gradient from orange to white. And this orange is the color I'd mentioned last week, or 2 weeks ago with my works. It's just orange from Vallejo Model Air. We apply that. Once that's dried and cured, of course, I'm going to go back, it's like little bits on this thing, and do a layer of gold yellow, also from Model Air. Oh, this one's Game Air. And just cover that whole thing. So this guy actually needs a bit more. You can see there's some white peeking through. And both these colors, the orange and the yellow, it really behooves you to come back and do 2 thin coats. The more you apply, the stronger the yellow is going to be. If you want it to be more muted, you might hold back a little bit, but you can have a lot of control in both the orange and the yellow. So prime it white, do some orange, do the whole thing in yellow. And then what I do, and this is probably where you'll find the most variance, depending on what you're looking for, I end up washing the entire model in Agrax Earthshade. Now this guy came out a bit dark, especially for a town model, so I'm probably going to come back and bring him up just a little bit. But you can see it fills in all the crevices, gives it this sort of like dirty yellow look, and gives us this sort of baseline that we can work from. If you want something that's dirtier, that's grungier, you can do this with brush. And that works really well for a lot of the organic material. For things like Space Marines, especially if it's a vehicle, which can be really, really hard to apply a wash with a brush, I would try to do it with an airbrush, honestly. And that makes it a thinner layer that's not going to be collecting in the crevices as much, and it sort of just darkens the whole thing and helps blend those airbrush strokes. Yeah. So anyways, that's the overview. Now we'll try to apply it. We'll see how that goes. Yeah. I realize I don't have my chat set up, Bridger. How's everyone doing tonight?
People are doing all right. We got some questions about Space Wolves, and we got some answers to
Oh,
Space
dang.
Wolves.
What are people thinking?
So Brother Brigade Gaming has some... Whoa, that's a lot of point. Has some opinions on the new Space Wolves. He says, if you like them for their melee prowess, Psychic Awakening helped enhance that, while giving better survivability compared to, or from other Marines. Right, so we got all the Marine strats, keeps them alive. And then we got a little bit of buffs on their damage. That seems kind of cool.
Yeah, they definitely hit harder than ever. And I mean, things like Transhuman and Duty Eternal are nothing to stuff at.
Just too good.
They're so
I would
good.
say too good.
They are too good. They are. I'll be honest.
But we're getting kind of to the point where that's sort of what Marines are clinging to now. Those are their go-to strats. That's their go-to ability.
Yeah.
Which I think if that's what they got, if that's the trick up their sleeve, I'm okay with it. Marines should be durable. They
should be durable, and it's something that's really hard to represent when your usual model only has 1 or 2 wounds, and it's a D6 system. So I like that, and now that they are less killy, I think it's kind of nice that they have this other thing which Space Marines are known for, which is just being super tough. Yeah. So, yeah, no, I think that makes sense.
Now they just have to make factions that are supposed to be tougher than Marines.
I know.
Actually tougher than Marines.
It's so hard. I was talking about Strength 4 Catechins and Space Marines the other day, and like what a conundrum that is. It's like, should a Catechin's like a tough dude in the jungle, like he's a tough dude, but should he be as strong as A Space Marine?
Right, yeah. It's tough.
Not really.
Clearly, we need to switch to a 2d6 system.
A 2d6 system?
Yeah, that'll solve
I like it.
everything.
Oh, God. Oh, God. All right, let's get started. So I've gone ahead and primed this boy black, as mentioned before, and now I'm going to go ahead and grab some white. This is going to be dead white from Vallejo Game Air, and just start getting those undercoats. So a couple things about doing the white undercoat. You want to make sure that you hit pretty much everything, even the parts that are going to be sort of hidden in shadow and dark. In fact, if we go back to this Patriarch here, it's taken a bit more extreme, but I don't know if you guys can tell the undercoats, the under layer, sort of underneath him here, it is less bright, it is less vibrant. And so what that is it's basically just less white underneath that essentially keeps that dark, that black from the bottom layer. So this is something where if you are glutton for punishment, you can prime them black like I have, and it gives you a bit more control. But you at least want to get some white everywhere because the yellow is not going to take on the black, and it's going to look kind of ugly, and like it almost has like a green look to it if it's too close to black. So anyways, got some paint in here. I'm just going to run out, cleaned it right beforehand, and let's see what we can do. I'm not worrying too much about shading angles or anything right now. Really, I'm just trying to get this basic layer and just brighten everything a tad. I haven't decided on a light source. Some people are really, really big on choosing a light source and working from that. I will do it once we get a bit farther, but I'm not really tied to physics. I'm more of a if it looks good, it works kind of guy.
Well, you know, in real life, there's multiple light sources.
This is true. And I wonder what kind of light sources there would be if there was a cosmic horror bursting from the...
No light sources, that's my answer.
Oh my gosh. You know what? You're not wrong. So you guys can see I'm doing this very, very thin. In fact, right now it looks more like a gray than anything, right? And that's super important for airbrush. If you see wetness on your model from the paint, you're applying it too much too fast. This basically should dry to the eye at least pretty much as soon as you apply it. And if you see any of that wet paint, just slow down, take the pressure off. I'm working at about 25 to 30 psi right now. It's sort of a guess. We have this new fancy tech that lets us do this today, the 25-foot arrows, which seems to be working fine. The machine is fairly loud, despite what everyone tells you. All right, so we're just going to get some more of this. Cool. And yeah, I'm thinking these dudes will be Ultramarines, but I'm gonna try to just stick with him first because we need.
Question I have, sort of a naive question.
Yeah.
I've never done such a large and multicolored conversion.
Mm.
How it would scare me, you know, if I have to paint a bright yellow model with some blue guys in the same model, that would scare me.
It is scary.
How do we deal with that?
So there's a few ways you can deal with it. One, you do your most problematic colors first. Get them out of the way so that, for example, if I'm going back with something, like in this case, I'm going to do the yellow first because it is the brightest and it needs that strong base layer. And then I can come back and sort of add shadows and things like that and try to cover up any potential mistakes. But the real thing you can do with this, and I don't know if I brought any today, but Silly Putty. Silly Putty is your best friend when it comes to airbrushing. Basically, you can use it to mask things off. So for example, let's say I had this whole thing painted and finished, and I wanted to work on these guys. I'd basically take some, and you can just break it up into as small pieces as you want, flatten it, squish it, so that it perfectly covers basically the yellow parts of the model, so that I can then go ahead and just spray these guys and not worry about it more than I really need to. So that's the number one. Just like don't give yourself the opportunity to make that mistake, because you will. Silly Putty.
Yeah, that's definitely one of the tricks you taught me that I had just never even crossed my mind. I knew that you could mask with tape, and I was painting a knight before, and I masked it with tape.
Yep.
But the idea of just Silly Putty was mind-blowing.
I'm glad to help. Well, it's funny, right? Because it sounds like it wouldn't work, but for whatever reason, the material it doesn't really absorb the paint. It's not a problem later on. I've reused the blob of Silly Putty many times, And so for whatever reason, the material that it's made with just allows us to do this. Yeah, I'm just about out of paint. I'm going to do a bit more. This is pretty dark still, honestly, but this is getting that consistent base layer that I wanted to. What's everyone working on tonight? Curious. Got any new projects? Any continuing projects from a previous stream? Let us know.
Boy, I hope they paint faster than we do. More than takes less than a week to finish a project.
Right? Well, it's nice. I get to just do a little bit and then move on. You know?
It's the dream.
I know.
We all wish that we could just have unlimited funds to buy Warhammer models and then work on whatever part we want to work on.
Right. See, it's gonna get dangerous. Right now, this is fine because these are actual like things we need for streams that need to get done now. But eventually, it's gonna be like just crazy stuff that I really shouldn't be working on, but I just want to. So, not that like a Cthulhu Patriarch isn't crazy.
Ooh, Deathshroud Terminators. That is a cool model.
I love those models. Never painted them.
Really?
Yeah.
You could do blood and gore and pus and maggots and it's the whole range of specialty paints they try to sell you.
Right.
There's all of them on that model.
So much fun. Terminator is just great to paint, though. All right, so I'm really bringing these top ones up, and then I think we'll be pretty good to start. What I'll do also is I'll let this cure, obviously, but I'll go ahead and start the orange, and then sometimes I'll just notice, you know, some part is too dull, or I just missed it, or whatever. So we're just about good there. And you can see I'm totally getting paint on the Ultramarines, but I'm just not going to worry about it right now. They are going to be a dark color. They can handle having some paint underneath. I'll be able to basically reprime them in black with just some black spray paint. So I'm going to quickly rinse this out. Small note for cleaning out your airbrush between paints. I just use water now. I really try not to do any weird materials in there after I'm done painting. Or if there's really a clog, I'll use just isopropyl, which we talked about last week. And that's just 99% alcohol basically that just strips paint and just cleans it really, really well. But if you do it between colors, what can happen is, for example, you guys might see them in the shots, but I do have some leftover paint actually in this pot, and it'll start to kind of break that down, and you'll get chunks of paint break off that otherwise wouldn't have, and then that'll get into your machine. Actually, that will cause a clog. So just water between layers, I think, is the way to go. So, yeah.
So I have a question from Kyle.
Sure.
I feel like I could answer this for you, but I don't want to.
Oh, God.
Do you have one favorite paint range, or is there a mix that you like?
For sure, I like Vallejo. Vallejo is the way to go. They have ranges within that, but that's a whole other thing, right? I really like Vallejo. I use all their air paints, basically, and then using more and more of their regular paints. For GW, though, specifically their washes and their metals, I love. I have not found a replacement for that, I will say. So, Vallejo all day. Okay.
I stick to Citadel. I'm lazy.
Yeah, that's okay.
I just spend the money on it. I'm like, okay, well, it's paint made for this.
It's good. It's good quality. It really is. My only problem with Citadel really is the pots.
Yeah.
The pots, they dry out so fast. Like droppers save so much. Like I have like a quarter tub of Retributor armor that's just unusable because it's just basically dried out. Which, speaking of, just started a Custodes commission, and do you know how much a spray can of Retributor armor costs?
Oh, it's a lot. I'll tell you what.
It's like actual gold that I'm spray painting with. It's crazy.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah, it took like half a can just to base coat the Orion.
Gosh.
It's like $15 just to base coat an Orion.
Sad. I know. It's like pure gold. It's nuts. But it's good. It's good.
It's a good paint. It's hard to argue with.
Yeah, exactly. Well, my next problem is going to be actually finding it now. So the GW manufacturing and distribution is starting to open up again very soon, so that'll be nice. And our local, or at least my local GW store hasn't opened up yet, but I'm hoping they or the other game castles will start distributing again. Running low on supplies, man. So what I've just added is the orange from Model Air. Gonna run out a bit of this paint, make sure there's no water that's caught in there. And so I'm gonna talk about the gradations, right? So as I mentioned, for things like the Space Marines, you basically do your gradations one way and you stick with it, right? So for example, I've decided the orange more or less is going to be coming from the bottom. It acts as sort of darkening the model as you go down. Again, this is not really a realism thing. It just sort of evokes this idea of lighting. So I have the orange on the bottom of the pads. Often what I'll do, I haven't done it here, but I'll sort of go along the bottom of the model and just shoot it up, essentially. I do a bit for the chest plate here. And just choose that, and choose a consistent source of lighting, right? That's number one, whether it be real or fake. And so what I'll do here is I'm going to do something similar where the orange is the bottom, so more of the bottom is going to be orange, but then also the ends of these plates, they're not armor plates, but they're like chitin plates, will also have some orange as they're going to these bits that'll be this sort of red and pink and gore colors. So let's go ahead and give it a try. So I'm going to go ahead and start with underneath. It's a bit safer. So you can see how strong that is against that white. Immediately pops. And have to be very careful. Easier to take more steps rather than... Orange is a stronger color than the yellow. So it's a good place to go ahead and apply that orange to, because it'll pick up on that gray a lot better than the yellow will. The yellow will just kind of sit there and not work. Okay. It's funny, so this arm, well, the head, face part of it, and so there was no other side of the head. And so, as per our conversations from last week, I went ahead and heated up some blue stuff and made a mold for it, cast it, and then realized I was an idiot because it doesn't mirror the face. It's still a right side of the face on the left side of the face. Oh, no. I was like, of course it works like that. So I chopped it up and rearranged. So the eyes are still kind of wonky, but it's fine because it's like this octopus head. But I was like, of course that's how that works. It doesn't it's not like a computer where I can just flip it horizontally, right? So it's this funny moment. I thought I was so clever. I'm like, I'm just gonna cast this side of the face. I don't know what I want to do for the tentacles, but I know I want to do something cool with it.
You know what the tentacles remind me of? The brilliant blue tongue we put on.
I know. So I resisted. I was gonna take it. I was like, no. If I take it, the tentacles are gonna end up blue. That one's coming along nicely.
Australia GW's not opening soon, huh? That sucks.
Really? Oof. Yeah, that's rough.
Thousand Suns inspired Chaos Knight. That sounds familiar.
Oh, love it, love it. Definitely send us pics. That'd be great to see. These armpits are going to be orangish. Actually, I want to check this model. I don't know. Yeah, so he actually kept this body pretty much all yellow, except for these black stripes and then the spikes. So that's interesting. Usually, when I do Gene Stealers, I'll actually have this sort of armored chest. Whoops, be different, be like black or something. So we'll see. And see, we've gone over a little bit here, so I might have to come back with that, with the white and then the yellow. Lots of steps. Patience is important. And then each of these, I kind of want them to have that there.
Man, these other models are so cool. They have like the torn open muscle fiber sections.
They're so good.
So cool.
Patriarch, so cool. The funny thing is, I didn't even need per se this guy because we also have the four-armed emperor, but it's just such a fun project. And there was a time in the meta where you would see 3 patriarchs relatively often.
That was a fun time.
I liked it.
Is there a need for a mask when airbrushing?
So yes. Yeah. If you're gonna do, there's a few steps you should take, right? You should be in a well ventilated area. So make sure you have window open, have a fan. Don't do it in a tiny little closet or garage. That's not great for your health. Regardless of whether or not it is ventilated or not, a mask is good. I went years without using one, I'll be honest, and I think a lot of people have done a lot of work, but especially since I started painting more and doing commissions, um, I decided it was time. So I went ahead and I got one, and every time I airbrush, I use one. So if you're just doing it casually, every once in a while for a few minutes, in a well-ventilated place, it's not the end of the world. But if you're going to be doing a lot of airbrush, I do recommend it. Those particles are pretty nasty. So this is what we do for you guys, I know. But yeah, that's a great question. And I will say, especially if you're doing things like working a lot with isopropyl, especially if you're diluting certain materials with it and aerating those basically and turning those into particles, that's when it becomes more dangerous. The metals for certain companies are crazy dangerous. So if you go into like a shop and start looking around, some of like the AK products, which are great products, they're super dangerous. So just make sure you wear a mask when you use those.
Yeah, they put actual metal in those.
Yeah, it's crazy.
And you're just like breathing in these heavy metals.
That's how you get that authentic look. I'll be honest, I backed out of that one. I was too nervous. Come back to it. I was in the store and he's like, all right, so you got to do this and wear this mask and do this thing. And if you don't do that, you might die. I'm like, I'm just going to go back to my Craft Smart metallic paints. It takes like 5 more layers, but so yeah. All right, we're getting here on this one. I'm trying to resist overdoing it.
One other note on safety.
Yeah.
When you're letting primer dry it outside. Don't dry it in your house.
For sure.
It still releases chemicals pretty much continuously until it's done dry.
They're pretty dang toxic.
Yeah, not good for you.
Do that outside, on a balcony. I always say just leaving them there. Yeah, it's rough. Okay, give that a second. And actually, I do want to go ahead and grab my tablet real quick so I can see you guys too. I miss my family.
So the face for this patriarch was the arm of a Necromunda monstery man with like a tentacle arm.
That's right.
Cool conversion from Adrian.
It was that box set that came out with the, not Arbites, but they look like Arbites. They're like a kill team. And they all have 40k rules, but they're terrible. And yeah, so I've just been saving them for conversions, essentially. All right. Go ahead and pull up the link.
Man, we're going to have the contrast discussion every week.
Oh, yes.
And I'm sure we'll upset people every week.
Oh, that was weird. I just opened up the stream to myself looking on my tablet at the stream. That's meta. So contrast. It is great, but you have to use it properly, meaning it can be great to get people started if you don't have much experience with painting things, if you don't have much experience with washes. However, I do think that marketing has overstated how good it is and how much it gets rid of the use for traditional painting methods. So for example, when you do paint something, I know it's sad to say, guys, but I personally think it's true. Marines are not great for contrast. They have lots of smooth, curved surfaces that make the material pool up in weird ways, and it kind of makes it look like a bad wash a lot of the time. Not to say it can't be done, but these are not very well suited to it. Any organic materials like clothing and ruffles and Tyranids, honestly, are great. That works really well. So for me personally, I use it just as a supplement to my traditional paint choices. So for example, Skeleton Horde, I use all the time when I'm doing different bone and leather. See last week's episode, where it kind of gives me this extra effect, and it's useful for me. So that's kind of like the caveat. It is good, but not the miracle product.
So Adrian, this is a question I actually don't know the answer to.
Yeah.
When you put a Narwhal in your Death Guard army, how did you do it? How, like, detachment-wise? Because I know they don't really work normally.
Yeah, so it sucks. It's one of the big disappointments with that is you essentially have to take a fortification detachment which is 1 to 3 of the fortifications, and you make it a Death Guard detachment. And so that's the biggest bummer because the unit is amazing. It's so powerful. Honestly, if it wasn't for the fact that it takes an entire slot, I would have it in most of those armies. Traditionally, if I was making a list that would use that tree, I would have a Death Guard one, I would have a Demon one, and then I would have my the tree detachment. Excuse me, it would have to be a Demon detachment, not Death Guard.
Right.
So you can have, as long as you have the same keyword under everything, you can still run it even in a tournament. So for example, ITC requires that you have your whole army under one tag essentially. So you could make a Nurgle army basically, where you'd have Death Guard, where everything has the Nurgle keyword in that. You could have a Nurgle Chaos Demon, where everything has Nurgle, and then the same thing for the tree. So as long as they all have Nurgle, that's sort of your army. You're now a Nurgle army. But yeah, it is a bummer it takes a detachment. I really wish they would fix that for a few of the fortifications. That's like, what's the word?
Let's get the Sigmar treatment in here. Let's get just free fortifications
I
for every army.
know. Yeah.
That'd be cool.
It would be so cool. It is a bummer when you have to buy them, but they're all so cool. I love them. All right. So yeah, I'm just giving this a bit of time to cure. Going to be doing the yellow next. Actually, no. We need to patch up a couple areas. So just to show you guys, this is what I'm talking about. We have the orange here that kind of went over this, and then there's a few parts, particularly underneath the tentacles and underneath the hands and arms right here, that really need some more white. They're just going to be too poopy. That's a technical term, and we really want to brighten that up. So let's go ahead and hop back over to dead white.
Dead white.
Dead white.
There's a lot of whites out there.
I know. I love the colors for the names of colors are fantastic. I mean, obviously the GW ones are great, but like we have dead white. We also have bone white. But this is basically the pure white.
So when I think dead, I don't think white. Maybe I should.
Like white.
People go pale
Walker. When they die? So I've heard. I've never seen a dead body. You see those often, Bridget?
No. Not outside of video games.
Right. That's fair.
Couldn't tell you if those are accurate.
It's funny, the dead white I don't use often except for the edges of power swords and undercoating things, undershading things. Usually I prefer to use the bone white, which is more of a off-white sort of bone color. But when you need something really vibrant and need to sort of make up for the fact that you have a black undercoat, this is the way to go. It's basically the same as a white scar. Haha. I love even when you're buying a Games Workshop product, you still have the advertisement for Games Workshop products. Like, I'm buying your paints already. Come on, man.
So Kyle's building a feculent normal to use with Iron Warrior obliterators. That sounds pretty cool.
Oh, I like it.
Iron Warriors just seem cool. Like all those Forge World machines that are clearly meant for Iron Warriors.
Right?
They're just such cool models.
I really like those a lot. They're super tough. They do a ton of damage. Back and shooting.
That's gross.
If you're feeling really kinky, you can run the Greater Unclean one and try to res them. You have to pay 240 points for a chance to maybe res a model, but hey, that's resing in this game, right?
Poor Greater Demons. They really...
I love them so much. And they're so...
The short end of the stick.
Not good. We love demons, and we still haven't run the Great Unclean one and the Slaanesh one. Well, the Slaanesh one we will soon. I'm working on that.
GW on their Facebook page has been putting out these like list building challenges.
Oh yeah.
One of them was out of all the armies you painted this last week, you have to put together an army that can fight a bloodthirster. And I was like, I don't know, just paint like one Riptide.
That's right.
Poor Greater Demons.
So sad. Bums me out, man. One day. They're great in Sigmar. I was running a triple Great Unclean one list in Sigmar. So much fun. And it was like decent.
You get like a lot of summoning with that, huh?
Yeah, exactly. All right, so we've come to the moment we've all been afraid of. No, that's just me. Gold yellow, this is Game Air Vallejo. I love this yellow. It's a bit, not orange, but it's not like a bright, bright yellow. You'll see what I mean as I start to apply it, but I love this color. This is all my yellow ever. All right, here we go. So same thing. We're going to be doing this relatively thin. And you can see even here, as I'm moving it, you can see the way that the yellow looks under different layers. So depending on what kind of yellow you're looking for, you can sort of play with that. And one note, right now it's going to look really, really bright and gorgeous, but this will get washed in Agrax, and that will dull the crap out of it. So just something to keep in mind. I find if you're going to be doing some wash like that, it's better to overdo it, go brighter, because whatever you think it's going to be darker than that. This also applies to like blue. So if we get around to the ultramarines, that's a similar sort of thing where every time I do ultramarine models, I'll be doing the undercoat, basically everything before the wash, and I'm like, it looks so bright. This is too much. This is too much. And then I wash them, and then they're like black. And so it pays off to just overdo it on one end. So even here, you guys can see very bright yellow, very vibrant, and then down here starts to sort of really dull out, and that's just how strong that undercoat is essentially. But overall, I am not unhappy.
I'm impressed.
Yeah?
It just it was one of those Bob Ross moments where it just comes together, you know?
Yeah, just a bunch of white and orange and other crap.
At the beginning of the yellow, I was a little worried. I was
a
little scared. It looked like things could be going south.
I did have a moment, I'll be honest.
it came around.
Yeah.
Back together.
It's all layers.
Neon apply there.
I know, right? Yeah, so this totally works for pink. I think it applies to white, but I still haven't solved that mystery.
I think white's tough.
White's so tough.
White's
oh my gosh.
It's hard to make white not look unfinished, you know?
Exactly.
What PSI are you using? I could go outside and check, but I think it's somewhere around 25.
Yeah, it's like 25, 30. If you weren't around earlier, we are running on a super long hose, which seems to be working fine, but that could, I'm genuinely been curious to see how this would work with this super long hose. So far it seems fine though. So, cool. That's looking.
So is he holding in his left hand the skull of the model in the middle?
Yes.
That's so cool.
So originally, I was like gonna do something else. I'm like, every Patriarch ever is holding the skull of a Space Marine. But it's like impossible to get it out, and I can't find a hand that matched it. So I was like, let's just make this part of the narrative and have it be pulling this guy's head off.
That's really cool.
Thank you. We're just gonna go all in. Cool. So there's the yellow there. There's a few parts we might want to clean up a bit more, but overall, I'm really happy with it.
Okay, so Adrian, this question might be. There's really a secret second question hidden underneath.
Sure.
We'll see.
Isn't there always?
How do you get the airbrush paint into the little holes and nooks without overdoing the area around it?
I see, and I see what you're getting at too, Bridger. So part of it is making it okay when you do go over it, right? So being careful what you start with. For example, what I'm starting with right now is the bright yellow that will very easily get messed up if I put another color on it, right? So I'm starting with that and just kind of being okay with getting in all the ultramarines and things like that, because those are going to get reprimed in black, get very dark colors, the blue and everything. So it's sort of a safer way to start. So I'm giving myself some space to make those mistakes, which is not really the true answer, which is masking with silly putty. So basically, well, a couple things actually, just masking in general, right? And so what I mean to anyone who might not be familiar with that is, if I wanted to paint like this, if I wanted to do like a red hand with a white background here, I might go ahead and just spray this whole thing red first, right? So I'm just going to do it everywhere and get it anywhere where the hand doesn't want to actually be, right? And then what I would do is I can just put my hand here, and I'm going to cover that up completely, and that area is now masked, right? And then I would go in with my other color, the what did I say, white, and just paint there essentially. And then when I take it off, I've now left that first color there. I've masked it out, and I've now painted a red hand on top of white. And so the same principle holds here, where we can use silly putty to mask off certain parts. But one of the other things you can also do is index cards. I love index cards, just little bits of stiff paper that you can kind of hold in front of a section. And for example, if I hold this here, if I wanted to like do this leg without hitting this yellow, that's a real danger point, right? So for example, I have this just paper. I would basically try to get some index card and just cover that up, right? Just tuck that in. I might cut it up a little bit if I wanted a smaller one and it wasn't working for me. So that's another trick, another thing you can use for masking. I even use my finger if it's really like that dire. So if I go at that angle and then hit it like this, it's pretty dang safe. So yeah, masking.
I would be scared.
It's a risky move and it's also a lazy move, but it does work. Okay.
I think there might be a third aspect to this question, which is armpits. You know, like you're trying to get into the crevices of the model without just like overcoating everything around the crevice. And I think distance, like just hold your airbrush farther away or closer.
Yeah, that's very true. And that's also related to PSI, right? How much pressure you have is going to determine how it's going to come out and how thick and how fast it's going to come up. So yeah, Bridger's totally right. If I just want to hit this armpit, I might bring it down. You can turn down the PSI so it's not just blasting a ton of paint in the armpit, and just get real close. Don't be afraid of that. To do that when it's necessary, and just sort of like tuck that in there. That's also like a very, very important thing. All right, so I want to give some more time for this to. I'm like, here's how we mask all these things. Did not bring my masking tools.
Yikes.
We'll see.
We'll figure it out.
We'll make it work, guys. All right, so now we're in black. Did not get all the yellow. There we go, so we're on the black now. Okay. This is where things like orcs are easier. So if I get some black, it's fine. And if I hit it, it's just like battle damage. But this Patriarch needs to be super sharp. So we're gonna start with the easier sections right now. Just kind of hitting them. We're going to rotate that angle, literally, so you can see how close I get, because if I was holding it here, obviously I would hit the tentacles. So I'm honestly just going to get in there a little bit. And then from this side, hit like so. Just clean them up. Almost had like a yellow OSL effect going here. That should have been the tutorial.
So I think getting used to your airbrush with your set, like Adrian here, the airbrush is sort of an extension of his arm. He can put the paint where he wants to because he has hundreds, maybe thousands of hours of practice with the airbrush. If I took that airbrush and tried to do what he's doing, it would be black everywhere. And so honestly, it's just putting in practice. I had a friend tell me once to do like test exercises, like drawing certain shapes and figures just on a cardboard box. Do that 10 times a day just to get practice.
Yep, absolutely. Just get used to the tools that you have. I've just kind of learning what works. For you, get familiar with that. The on paper thing is actually a really good point, because you don't always have a good sense of what actually is like the radius of this thing when you're spraying it. How strong is it? What does that look like? And that will also immediately tell you if you have a clog or something. If you're spraying it out, but that's not always apparent when you're actually just trying to dive in, work on the model.
Airbrushes should not sputter.
They should not sputter.
That's
figured that one out, huh?
That's a clear indicator. Take it apart, clean it, put it back together.
The tough thing is that there's so many things that can cause that, right?
Yep.
Which comes to one of my other things I wanted to mention. When you're starting out, I would just get proper air paints. Doesn't have to be Vallejo, obviously. But just get air paints. Don't worry about actually learning how to water down regular paints until you feel more comfortable with it. You know, there's enough difficulties to get started, enough barriers that make it simple for yourself. All right, so that's pretty good. I still ended up hitting a few of the tentacles, which is tragic. That's okay. Okay.
I think it looks great.
Thank you. I'm liking it. Like it. Sweet. All right, so let's wash this out.
And this is a wild question. Do you think that all the monstrous characters, all the big dudes, like Magnus, Mortarion, should get the Ghazghkull treatment, where they can only take so many wounds in a round?
That's a great question.
Personally, I think it's very dangerous.
Yeah.
That's pushing towards, like, do you think knights should get it? What about the named character knights? Like,
yeah.
Can the game afford to have these giant things just wandering around that already have 18, 20, 24 wounds? Can the game afford for them to only take a set number of wounds in a turn? Will that just take over the entire game?
Right.
It would be epic. It would be cool. It would be fun to be playing that, but it would be mega unfun to be playing against that.
It would be, yeah, and then you'd get this. I agree with Bridger. I think it would create more problems than it solved. And I think one of the reasons it works now is because it's the only mechanic in the game that does that. And we had the same thing in Sigmar with Marathi. She has basically the same rule. And same idea. The moment that you see a lot more of that, then you have this weird problem where you're just kind of allocating a certain amount of damage each turn to doing this, and that shifts the play a lot in a weird way. That I just don't think it's. I definitely think there's a problem where things like Mortarion and Magnus either wreck or get wrecked, and that shifts so much depending on who you play with and what the meta looks like. So there's probably a better solution. I just don't know if the Gaz treatment is an answer. And if you had asked me whether I would have taken 12 wounds on Gaz or 9 wounds and keep the character rule, I'd probably say 9 wounds and keep the character rule.
Ooh.
It's tough.
That's a hot take right there.
It's hard. So if you think about it, even if you're healing up with the Medi-Squig, but you're still offsetting that damage. So for example, no spoilers, but if you look at the game when we actually ran Gaz versus Magnus, the ways in which we saw the math actually working out, where it's like, okay, I've done 2 or I've healed this much, and then so Brian only has to do 2 in this phase, and then it's much easier to do the next 4 in the other phase. And so it's not. It's wonkier than it looks on paper, right? It's really not. On paper, pretty much you can only do 4 wounds a turn with most armies. But in reality, there's a lot of ways that can happen, especially with, for example, Gaz is slow. He can't go through ruins, things like that. So you need to deep strike him. Well, if you're going against Space Marines or Eldar, they can intercept you. Guess what? That's a whole nother phase in which you just took 4 more wounds. So he's dying even faster now. So there's a lot of wonkiness that I still haven't lost faith in my boy, but it's weird. It's really weird and not as broken as it seems. Rant over. All right, we're going to go ahead and add some red very carefully. This is my favorite. Well, yeah, this is my favorite red. Gory red, Game Air. I hesitated because Mephiston red is really nice. I love that one.
Mephiston red is kind of nice.
It's so good. That one's more like hot rod red, and this is like dark maroon. It's gory red. I mean, come on. So we're going to go ahead and start applying that to the crevices and a bit on the tentacles. I'm really trying to be careful with this model, not overdo it. So here, with these 2 tentacles, I'm okay with the little going over because this other tentacle is actually facing up as well. So it's going to get that red anyways. I think it gets a bit more complicated on the other side. And here is where we'll... so airbrush is all about angles, right? So if I just put my finger here and I start spraying, that actually protects that that tentacle. Nope, still got just a teeny bit there. But it's all about just hitting it from one angle. And I would generally recommend that you get comfortable with your airbrush and just hold it at one position, right? I mean, obviously, don't never move, but you generally want to move the model rather than your actual airbrush. And that might seem a bit counterintuitive to start. And there.
The control. It's impressive.
Thank you. I'm trying not to think about blue-green and how good it would look on this.
Marcus, I don't think we'll be doing stencils tonight, and unfortunately, Adrian didn't bring his masking tools, although his thumb is being used currently as a masking tool.
Heck yeah.
We will definitely do another show on that, though.
Yeah, so this was sort of a test to see how well we can do the airbrush on stream, but if you guys are liking it, definitely want to do some stencils following it up. So that's good to hear. We've been talking about that. So literally, I'm even going to use more finger right here so that doesn't go through to the chest. Let's see. You guys see that okay?
The airbrush is actually perfectly blocking it, but that's all right.
Ah, no.
not from that camera, but
gotcha.
From the top end.
Yeah, makes sense.
It actually looks pretty good one. What light are you using to light the model? We talked a little bit about this earlier. Some people subscribe to a very specific formulaic 1 or 2 light source system, and you have to sort of define for this model the light source should be here, and then it's there always. But Adrian is more fond of just putting light where it feels right.
Absolutely. I have a vague sense that I know that I want the top of the model to be brighter for this one in particular. But other than that, I'm sort of being very loose with it. So it really depends on what works for you. Let's see.
I find that with more tech-focused, tech-oriented models, light source becomes a lot more rigid.
Yeah.
It becomes more like, well, this thing glows, so I'm going to put light here. Otherwise, there's just one light source.
That's true.
But with more organic things, I feel like there's a lot more freedom to just kind of put light, like, oh, I think this edge would catch some light source, so I'll just light that edge.
I think that's true. And you can have, like, especially here, right, we have these colors are sort of mushing together. We have the yellow and the orange and things like that, and it's all very organic. So we can be a bit more flexible with that, where it's like, oh, is it the texturing of the creature? Is it the actual lighting? Stuff like that. This one, I'm really nervous about that one.
That's scary.
It's super scary. We're going to try it. Ah! It actually worked. I'm not going to try for that one, though. It's just a little bit short.
Oh, cool. Hans was asking what the desk light was.
It is a painting one, so it actually has this magnifying glass here. I'll ask him and let you guys know next week. But it's actually nice. Lighting is actually something we can talk about, like desk lighting. White lights. So white bulbs, things like that. Not so much fluorescent, but just like actual bulbs that are white. A lot of bulbs actually are yellow, have a yellow tone to them, which can make a room feel more warm. It's very intentional. But for models, you want them to be as close to reality as possible. It's already tough. Like a lot of the time, I'll like paint my models and be like, okay, they're fine, it's whatever. And then I'll take them out to go to like tournament or friend's house. And I'm like, oh man. Usually it's a good thing, not always, but usually it's like that looks way better than I thought. But as much as possible, yeah, try to get clear lighting with white bulbs. I know it's tough. We all have like different stations, from like the kitchen table to the office or whatever it may be, right?
Yeah, I paint in my cave of a bedroom that's not very well lit.
Just need one good lamp.
It tends not to work out too well. So what model would I like to see the gas treatment? I think Gilliman, if they were to really properly do Gilliman, instead of being resurrected, I think you would just take X wounds per round.
That would be
cool. The resurrection thing was always a little bit silly.
Yeah. The resurrection thing is stressful for everyone, including the Gilliman player, and it's hard to have sympathy sometimes, but like that's really stressful. You have so much of your game relying on, can you roll a 4-up with a reroll, which is still, what, 75% chance that it'll go off. Not that high.
Yeah.
So yeah, just reducing, saying, okay, you can only take 3 wounds every turn or something. Would you get rid of character roll, though? Would you give him more wounds?
That's a tough call. Probably, yeah. I think it's only fair that if you're limited on the number of wounds you can take already, character rule on top of that is just a bit oppressive.
Yeah. I would love to see Abaddon get it.
That'd be interesting, yeah.
especially because he doesn't have some of the tools that these other people have. I remember fighting. Actually, it was Jeff. I was playing him at a tournament. I was running Gaz, of course, and he was running Abaddon, and we had this awesome duel, which was like these champions. But the thing is, like, if Gaz dies, he can still fight. If he doesn't kill Abaddon, he can fight twice. And Abaddon's just like, I guess he can fight twice because he has the corn mark, but that's about it. Like, I killed him, and that was it. So some way of making him a bit more epic in the same way that like Gilman and Gaz and things are. And this was obviously pre the new Gaz. So, but he's weird too, right? Because Gilliman's not infantry; he's a monster. But Abaddon is infantry, which is both good and bad.
Yeah, I think overall infantry is a strong keyword.
It's super strong. I don't think there's anywhere it's a negative, right?
There are a few effects that only hit infantry, I think.
Oh yeah. You can't thunderfire a.
Yeah.
Or no, it's the opposite. You cannot thunderfire a Titanic. But same idea.
There are thunderfire-like abilities that only target infantry.
Yeah, that's true.
Like the new thunderfire tremor shells is just silly how strong it is, but
so silly. I'm gonna do some in these back crevices.
Adrian, what actual airbrush are you using?
So the brush itself, this is an Iwata Eclipse. I had to like double check it. Iwata Eclipse, it's not the cheapest, it's not the most expensive. It's a good starter brush. You can get it on like, I think I just got this on Amazon. It's a good place to get started. Not super fancy, but it works. This is the only one I've really ever really worked with. So yeah. All the Iwata stuff is good.
Loki nailed it. He said it looks like a cut down.
I don't actually use the back most of the time because I'm like pulling this out, trying to clean the front, doing fiddly stuff with that, and I just don't even want it. So that's why it looks so weird. I basically just popped off the back and I don't have the cover on the top. It's funny, these habits that we have when we forget that that's not actually normal with hobbying. All right, so we're just gonna add some red in here. Get it out. Yeah, just about.
Levi, I think that running a knight with Magnus would not make Magnus live longer, it would make the knight live longer. Most intelligent players will recognize that if Magnus survives more than 2 turns, the game is just over. So they'll kill him at all costs.
Yeah.
So it'll get your knight to turn 3.
If you run, I think conversely, if you run Magnus and Mortarion, Mortarion makes Magnus live longer.
Really?
Yeah. No?
I don't know. If I had to fight Magnus and Mortarion, depends on what faction I am. So I actually did play not the past LVO, but the LVO prior.
Yeah.
I was playing Tau against Magnus and Morton.
Did you have the top of the first turn?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
It was gross.
That makes sense. Yeah, I guess that changes the math a little bit, right? So if you didn't have the top of the turn, would you still go for Magnus? Even if he was -1 to hit, 3 up and vuln?
If he had already gone Super Saiyan,
yeah,
it's over. There's no recourse.
So literally you just have to go first.
Yeah, I think Tau against a powered up Magnus is, at the time, was in real trouble.
I just wait for him to fail the -1 to hit.
How?
That's all.
How would he fail it? His rerolls.
If you were playing me and I was rolling, then you could do it.
Yes.
But the thing is, like, I find with a lot of my armies, I can deal with Magnus better than, I don't know. That's a tough question.
No, Magnus is just...
Magnus is crazier. Like, he can go everywhere and do amazing stuff, but, like, Mortarion will just, like, kill anything.
Yeah, Mortarion, if he gets blades and, like, all of his buffs, will just kill anything.
Yeah.
But Magnus, if he gets all his buffs, will never die, which is actually stronger.
That's true. Well, yeah, because Morty's only living 2 turns. Because you're targeting him first.
That is really cool, Loki. What did you get your PhD in that required an Iwata?
That's awesome. That's sweet. Okay. I'm just debating these inner ridges on the leg. really not sure. So I know this is going to be a super gory model. I know that I'm going to have like a blood for the blood god, great paint here everywhere, but I haven't decided really what I want to do with this. If you look at one that Izzy did, more kind of pinkish, I'm okay with doing that a bit differently, but just kind of considering how I want to do it. What we will do is, so you see he has this sort of like glow effect on the brain. One of my favorite things to do, and eventually we'll do a tutorial on doing demon flesh, is working with orange, red, and purple all together to create this sort of like putrid flesh nastiness. A lot of fun to paint, and it looks good. So we're actually going to hop to purple real quick. Clean this one out.
Yeah, we did put the compressor outside, and we just ran a really long house.
Yeah.
I think the price point for a compressor that quiet is just too high.
It's a lot more than the $10 cable, whatever it was. So yeah, we just ran it outside. So we've been wanting to do airbrush. It's so integral to my style, and I know for Brian it is as well. If you can see the Tau that he's done, so we wanted to be able to show you guys that. All right, if you thought red was scary, we're gonna do purple now. This one's actually not as bad because these ridges on top I think are gonna end up being black.
Oh wow, that is really cool. So Loki got his PhD in physics using an airbrush to create a speckle pattern. Tracking the speckles. That's cool.
That's awesome.
It was like tracking with an airbrush.
That's awesome. Oh my god. Well, hopefully you heard the earlier section. We talked about the the particles that we don't want to breathe in. All right, so we got some purple. Looks nice and crazy right now as the base layer. That's okay. What I'll do for this sort of bruise kind of stuff is I'll do a purple, and then I'll go to a red, and then to an orange, and sometimes a little bit of yellow, and of course wash the whole thing in a brown.
That alien purple looks really awesome. What was the name of that color?
That was alien purple.
Oh,
oh my god. You've been pranked, son.
They're pretty good at naming paints.
That was good. Yeah, so that's alien purple from Vallejo, and it's a game one. Yes, game air. Yeah, I really like that purple. All right, back to gory red just a little bit. Start blending in this brain matter.
Oh, was there an earthquake in SF? Is that
when, like now, during the show?
I think that's what this.
Maybe that wasn't an airplane. How crazy would that be? Cool, I'm liking this a lot.
Ooh, wow, look at that.
Yeah, I like that a lot. Digging it, digging it. Gonna add more here.
Oh. It was not an earthquake, it was a joke about our compressor.
That's right. Yeah, the compressor is just a small, cheap one. We were also discussing beforehand. I don't have huge recommendations on compressors. I just make sure they're not terrible. Most of the time they're Master. Master is the company that makes the really common ones that you see around. Small, not too noisy. I've never gotten a complaint for my airbrush, and I always live on second floor apartments. But it doesn't mean I don't sometimes put a pillow underneath because I'm like, I worry. I worry that somebody's being made miserable because I'm painting like all day. All right, cool. So we've got that. I think we're gonna go ahead and come back with some more white and then yellow, and we'll take it from there. The thing I'm debating is like how much time I need to give it for this wash. Normally, what I'll do is I'll give it an entire day and just completely overdo the amount of time I give it to cure. But I really want to show you guys the wash. So let's see. All right. Basically, do extra bright highlights. Right now I'm more using it to just kind of fix areas, but you can also go back and add that. So for example, if I grab the right suit. So this one here, no, this is not the washed one. I go back afterwards and I add some yellow and some white. And I'm actually going to do more, as I mentioned, because it is a bit darker than I wanted to. So the white points you can see here, but I think even after this, I'm going to go ahead and hit this with some yellow as well. And this is something right there. This is something I do a lot with my models. Is I'll do the main paint scheme, right? All the base colors. I'll do the wash, and then I'll go back and hit it with some more airbrush, which gives it a very particular effect. It actually makes it look very, very soft in a way that I haven't been able to get any other way. So that's something you can also do.
Do you not magnetize your suits? Well, Adrian is not a Tau player, so magnetizing his suits would be
blasphemous. Oh yeah.
Too much work. Unless you really are committed to Tau.
Too much. No, those are actually from my brother that have been trying to get into the game for a while, and he said he wanted his suits. That's like all he had. So I'm just starting those up. I'm gonna try to get him inspired, get him hooked on that plastic crack. So that's why, yeah, they are not magnetized.
Are you his dealer?
I hope to be. I'm like, I'll do anything to get you to play. Okay, just seeing if we missed anything. If I missed anything. No, I like that. It's pretty good. Okay, back to yellow.
All right, Adrian.
What's
the
up?
Paint smell is starting to get like overwhelming over here. I'm gonna open the door and see if it makes the light.
Go for it. I lost too many brain cells. This is the things we do for the show. Yeah, let us know if the sound gets weird, the lighting gets weird, guys.
The lighting looks almost unchanged.
Yeah, I think so. Nice, cool California evening. That's been the worst thing about this whole shelter in place. We've had such good weather. I don't know where everyone else in the chat is living, but oh, it's been gorgeous.
The first couple weeks of shelter in place, it was like raining nonstop.
Yeah, it was perfect. You could kind of be in denial. Like my wife was like, I feel like I'm just gonna tell myself this is why we're inside. It's a nice rainy day. I'm like, yeah, man, that's good. But now it's just gorgeous. I've rediscovered my patio. Just painting on the patio every day. It's awesome. Cool.
Yeah, I don't hear the compressor in the audio, so I think we're good.
Sweet. Let us know, guys, if anything's a problem. I feel slightly less faint now.
Edmonton, I think I have a.
Yeah, no kidding. That's awesome, though. Sweet. Looks good. I like it. All right. We are going to let that yellow cure. And so one thing you can do if you're impatient like I am is while you're waiting for something to cure, to do a wash, you can go ahead and do materials that don't care about that wash. So for example, this is going to be a brown wash, but I can actually go ahead and do a lot of the black that that won't be affected by that. So that's something you can do. I know a lot of us, like, we only get a certain time to hobby, and it's like, I'm going to do this, I'm going to get this done. And there's ways to do that without totally ruining the model. So yeah, we're going to go ahead and do some black. Yeah. Let me grab the pot real quick. Ugh. So we're going to use Abaddon black.
My favorite black.
Classic black.
It's super black.
That's right.
And it's super inky. You know, it's like
It
it's very
is super
watery.
inky. It seems appropriate for our squid head. No, it's a great black. So we're gonna do again. I'll show you guys the first Patriarch for reference. Black claws, black spikes. This thing is embedded in the Space Marine, so I don't actually have to do that. And we'll see about this pattern. I'm still a little bit indecisive about this center carapace, but we can definitely do the other stuff and see how that goes. Okay, so let's see. We're gonna go ahead and use the Artificer layer brush from GW. This is the small one. Looks like so. Yeah, it's not super tiny, not super big. It's good for just like mid-level details, things like that. And we're going to go ahead and hit up these claws. Which is a good time to sort of reiterate one of the other misconceptions that people have about airbrush, which is that it does everything. At the end of the day, you want to come back to the model and hit it up with some paint on a brush, get those details done. The airbrush can make your work faster once you're familiar with it, and it can let you do effects that wouldn't be very feasible otherwise. But at the end of the day, it's just another tool.
Yeah, you can definitely hand paint without ever using an airbrush, but you can't airbrush without ever hand painting.
My God, that is 100% true. Sweet, look at that, nice contrast.
Unless you play Tau.
Unless you play Tau.
Tau.
It's true, it's true. I don't know, those sharp edge highlights on Tau model, oof, so good.
They do look, yeah, that's true. They do look good. Can't do that with an airbrush, huh?
Not yet. I'm working on it. That's next week. Yeah, we can. There's a lot of stencil things we can do actually, so we'll give that some thought. I've been doing it a lot lately for my freebooters. Actually, so this last weekend, I said I want to paint my freebooters. I've had them for a while. I haven't really done them, but such a okay. First of all, that kit is nuts. You know how that kit works? So the freebooters, it's not freebooters. I'm sorry, it's the flash kits specifically.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm like, they're so synonymous. So the flash kits, which are the loudest and the rowdiest of the orcs, right? They're super overconfident and showboaty. They're the pirate orcs. They weren't always the pirate orcs, but they were always the guys with the crazy guns. And so they have the snaz guns, which are like super expensive in orc culture, made from like the most outlandish and crazy parts from across the galaxy. And so the kit, basically the way you build the gun is they give you the center of the actual gun. It's just like a bare piece of plastic with a little bit of like engine detail inside of it. Not engine, but something or rather. And then you basically build each part of it. So like you slide on the middle section and then the front section. And then there's literally like 6 different parts. There's 3 stocks you can attach to it, 3 different ammo feeds, which can be anything from rockets, different nozzles. So you'd be like, okay, this is like this plasma feed that comes out as like a las cannon barrel with like all these bullets like strapped to it and like 3 different sights on it. It was so much fun to build.
That's really cool.
Yeah, it was awesome. And as far as bits go, oh my gosh, so much good stuff.
But bits that might be hard to apply to something else, right? If they were designed to go into this modular gun.
Right. You would think so. Last night I was working on my Mad Doc Grotznik, because the current model is super old. And I've used quite a bit of them. Because it's just like crazy orc sights and stuff like that, which are his eyes. But all of this to say, originally, that I also used a bunch of the stencils on them because they have a lot of like checkers, orc checkers.
Oh, right.
So that was fun. Yeah. It's funny because like the black and white checkers is like the goth thing, but it's also really big for the freebooters. Funny. So all their guns have that.
So how would you do a straight white line on any model?
On any model? That is a great question. If you wanted
to put a stripe on the helmet of a Space Marine.
So what I would do is not what you think, right? It's all about, it's a very, very fine line, literally, right? and it's all about reducing that potential for error. So let me actually grab a brush to show you guys. That's a great question. And something that we probably won't get to today because this thing will have to dry after the wash, but that would be sort of the final step in most yellow. So for example, do I have anything here? Kind of. You guys can see the edge highlight on the armor plates. So what I would do generally is I would grab a brush. This one is small, maybe extra small. I think this would be an extra small if it was GW. This is a 0 on Broken Toad, if you guys are looking for brushes. So small, but not like teeny tiny little stump small like this one is. You can't even see the brush probably. And so what you do is you get some paint, obviously. You water it down decently, so you always want to thin your paints. But this is something where it's more important than ever. You don't want to get any clumps of paint. And so let's say I was doing the edge of this like collar plate right here. Rather than trying to paint the line straight like this, I actually want to go perpendicular to it and just kind of slide my brush along it, just follow the curvature. And this way, like that's much easier to do than trying to follow this line extremely precisely, right? I'm going to mess that up for sure. It's going to be a blob and go everywhere. But yeah, you just go this way essentially. Smaller details like the Space Marine helmets. Same thing here. Same thing here. Same thing here. Just like the airbrush, I'm trying to move the model more than I am my hand. So you notice I'm going to keep my hands in the same position and just rotate this model to do each of those. So yeah, that's the secret actually is if you want to do something really accurate and tiny like that, make it so you don't have to be accurate. That's how you get it done.
Good advice.
Thank you.
Seems like a lot of the tools that we use are mitigating inaccuracy, you know?
It really is. It really is. It's all about sort of cheating this impossible thing that we do, which is paint these ridiculously tiny figures with details smaller than like a millimeter. So yeah, that's important. I'm not going to do the claws on the Space Marine helmet because obviously that's going to get a lot of paint later on. But I will do these claws. So right now he looks pretty garish. This ridiculously bright yellow, the purple and the red. The wash is going to change our entire lives. And in a little bit, we're just going to go for it.
Most fun model you've ever built? I feel like I've asked you this before.
Built? Yeah.
Let's say not a conversion. Just like
the
base kit was the most interesting.
Oh my gosh. This is one of those questions the answer kind of changes, right? Because I really like the Mangler Squig kit. It's so much fun to build and to work on. It has just these crazy big cartoony details that were a lot of fun. But man, those flash kits, that was a whole new world. I had so much fun doing that. I like building things, but I'll usually try to just get through it, right? So those flash kits, I would say, are actually my new favorite one to build. Not my favorite kit, but my favorite one to build. Favorite kit has transferred as they released the models. They pretty much all the great demons essentially, with the Lord of Change. Oh my God, being the greatest. Actually, it was Bloodthirster, Lord of Change, basically whatever order they came out in. And Mangler Squig is now my favorite one, just as far as like the design of the kit, the details. Those are all gorgeous. What about you, Bridger? What's your favorite? Favorite kit to build or just in general?
That's a tough call.
It is.
All the coolest looking models were way more work than I thought they were worth.
Yeah. That's fair. You didn't like building those Centurions?
No. Maybe if I only had to build one of them.
Oh, I know, right?
But after building, what, 18 of them? pretty sick of that kit.
I have the most appreciation for the first model. I'm like, oh my God, it's amazing. And the last one's just assembly line just thrown on there.
When I first built an Invictor, I thought that was one of the coolest kits.
Yeah.
But after 3 more of them, I was pretty sick of that one. Because it's just a reskin Redemptor kit. They reuse pretty much the entire kit.
That's true. It's funny when you do that, you realize all these, like how they designed the kit, right? All these little common factors and details and motifs that they carry over one to the other. Just did the Harlequin transports the first time, and that was fun, seeing like I'm familiar with the Venom and seeing what they chose to carry over, especially there because it actually kind of fits the narrative, right? They're sort of both derived from the same culture of this like the original Eldar before the actual craft worlds, and seeing like the curvature of kind of the back of the hull and the mesh in the bottom and what they changed for the Dark Elder one or from the Dark Elder one because that was the first model into the Harlequin one. It's really cool actually.
It's all Ynnari, man.
All Ynnari.
All tied together.
Do we need any more black here?
What color are the suction cups going to be?
I'm not sure. I'm open to suggestions, though.
Well, I mean, black would be the obvious traditional answer.
Yeah. I'm like, one of the things I'm trying to decide is what I'm going to make super bloody with Blood for the Blood God, which is the technical paint from Games Workshop. Because I love that paint, but it also covers things up a lot. I'm going to have to thin it down. So it's always this balance of like actually painting the model and then not just covering all of the paint up with just this blood color. That's one of the things I'm debating. I'm like, I guess I could have most of the blood just be coming from the Space Marines. And the tentacles are just the tentacles. It's not his blood.
It's true. And I don't think the tentacles were involved in the beheading.
No, they're actually not. That's true. But there's going to be splatter everywhere.
It's true.
That's one of my other like guilty pleasures with the airbrush is doing blood splatter. Where you get a brush, like not really a nice brush. So like this one, this is a Artist's Loft from Michaels. So super basic, and you just get a bunch of the blood there, and you basically hold it in front of the model. You get it clumped on, you get your airbrush, and you just do bursts. This is where you actually probably would turn up the PSI and bring it super close, and it just like flicks, like perfectly flicks all these tiny little bits and bobs and gore splatters. I've tried doing it by hand, but then I found that technique. I was like, this is amazing, and it's a lot of fun to do.
It's really smart.
But just make sure there's no other models around, because that it goes everywhere. Yeah, I've been like working on some Nurgle guys, and all of a sudden my Eldar have like blood splatter on them. Yeah. All right, cool. So that's it for the black, I think, right now. We're going to do a test wash, just to make sure we're not doing anything weird in stripping paint if it hasn't cured. And so we're going to do that. It's actually pretty easy for this model because he is segmented with these different chitin plates. So we can pretty safely do a targeted wash, is what you would call this. And we'll grab a bigger brush for this. Oops, drop it in the paint. And the safest bet.
Feet. Nobody ever looks at feet.
I was kind of like, we should probably just do the feet. All right, you guys are gonna look at the feet for the first time. All right, so how much do I want to water this down, if at all? I do actually. So I'm gonna grab some paint here, get some water, some wash. I'm going to be careful. Agrax is very powerful. It's one hell of a drug, kids. So there we go. So you see I've watered that down just with water, nothing fancy. And I want to use it to get into the crevices. I do want to use it to actually darken things just a bit, but I don't want to overdo it. So if you see any pooling, make sure that you pull that out of the way. Because if it pools too much, you're also going to have this problem where certain parts of the model are glossy from that pooling effect, and others are not.
Are we going to see some gooey gore trails connecting the head to the body? I don't think today.
Not today, because that really has to be after everything's done. But potentially I could just bring this back for another day when working on something else and do that one step. Because that's a whole another thing too. And that's the hard part too, is it's like, I really want to do that effect, but I have to wait until everything is completely done. The Marines, this dude, everything. I'm gonna bring this over. It's getting a little bit dark. I don't know if you guys can tell. And this is like that webbing again. I want to get that nice and shaded. Dig it.
So Forge World model that I would want to see in plastic. That's a tough call. I think Sicarans are really cool.
Yep. Ooh, there's a bunch of orc ones. I would love to see the Chinork updated and made into a plastic kit.
Oh, that'd be cool.
That's the Orc helicopter, in case you don't know, because you never see it.
I actually played against 3 of those once.
What?
Um,
That's awesome.
it was John.
Of course. John McCool.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh my god. John's a friend of ours that has just every orc model ever. He has 3 Squiggoths.
He also had a Squiggoth in that game.
Of course. Of course. I would love to see Squiggoths again. I was digging through the PA rules, Psychic Awakening rules, and seeing if there's anything that really makes Squiggoths work again. Unfortunately, most of the new things target specific units. They were smart about that.
Specific units that are not Squiggoths.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Except for, so I don't know if I mentioned this before, but there was this crazy thing that happened that, to my knowledge, has never happened before. They referenced a Forge World unit in that book. They said you can be the biggest boss as long as Gaz is not around, and you can be the cleverest boss as long as Big Mech Buzzgob is not around.
Huh.
And he's a Forge World. He's the Forge World dude. So that was, I think, unprecedented.
A sign of times to come, maybe.
Could be. I know, it's crazy. And yet they couldn't throw the Squiggoth a bone.
Oh no, of course not.
Yeah.
That's a very large paperweight.
that'd be a good plastic kit. Someone posted in one of the groups today from a hobby article in like the 80s or early 90s, and it was saying how Games Workshop is great, Warhammer is great, but we had this problem where it's not feasible to create big vehicle kits because you just can't do that in metal. And the article was like, we haven't seen them yet. We're not likely to see them ever coming from Citadel. And it's just like this beautiful moment. You're like, if only you knew the Warlord Titans are coming.
They solved that problem. That's for sure.
I know. It was actually the Mumakil was the first giant kit from the Lord of the Rings set.
Oh yeah.
That was the first big plastic kit. Yeah. I'm
sure they were proud of that one.
I don't even play that game anymore, and I still really want it. Like I've wanted that one since I was a kid. Such a cool model.
That was the first miniature game I ever played.
Yeah?
It was that Lord of the Rings miniatures game.
That's awesome.
And it was they had the bases with the slot in them, so you would just push the model into the slotted base and it would be done.
Just easy to go. Easy to do.
And there would be, you could like push a rider into the horse. Pretty much like everything was its own like one piece thing.
Hey, that's nice for painting.
Oh, we didn't paint them.
You monster. You monster. Oh, man. That's actually how I met a very good friend, Shane. We were in band together and both playing trombone, of course.
You also played trombone?
Yeah. What, do you play trombone?
Yeah, I played trombone.
Oh, dang. We're learning about each other. I knew this show would be a good idea. That's hilarious. And he I don't know this kid. He just like turns to me. He's like, "Hey, you dare me to put this dwarf in a trombone?" And I was like, "What?" And he just has like a dwarf from the Lord of the Rings miniature game. It's not painted or anything. It's just unprimed. I was like, sure, I guess." And he sticks it in the horn of the trombone, which promptly gets stuck, and the entire class gets disrupted because obviously this god awful sound is coming out of his trombone, and it's a rental, of course, from the school. And that's how I met Shane. We then started our own fellowship and played that and defeated the Balrog. It was beautiful.
What a lovely story.
It was great. It was the game had problems, but man, it was just fun, like doing your own fellowship and just having those scenarios. That was a lot of fun. I haven't played any of the new stuff. Has anybody touched that? I know I haven't.
I've always been kind of amazed that that game still exists.
Yeah. It's tough when you are bound to an IP that is also bound to a movie that will eventually go out of fashion. I love those movies, but they definitely were able to capitalize on when they were in theater, when they were big, and all the video games had them. And now, I don't know. I'm no expert, but we've definitely seen it. And they have mined every possible book for every storyline.
Yeah, there were some really unabashedly terrible video games that came out of that series.
Yes. There you go. I'm just pulling some of this agrax off. Started pulling underneath his arm too much. So you can see it already starts to really tone down the model. Helps a lot. We're losing that bright shine.
Yeah, it's pretty impressive how just a wash gives a lot of the gradient from the airbrush. It's like its depth.
Yes, 100%. It I don't know how or why it does this. Maybe someone in the chat knows, but it takes that potential speckledness, which is really the airbrush at that level. If you look even moderately closely, it is just a bunch of dots, right? It's pointillism basically, and it gets rid of it. It just turns it into this beautiful gradient. And I don't know what the science is, but man, I love it. Someone last week asked what #1 tip helped me become a better painter, like immediately, and he said washes. Washes are how you make things look gorgeous. It's how you make mistakes look totally fine, and it's how you take a lot of this stuff to the next level. Cool. And so far, it's looking good. It looks like we gave the paint enough time to cure. We would know immediately if it didn't, because these are such bright colors that we would see it basically peeling the paint and we'd see the black appearing. So that's why we started with just this section. In case you guys are wondering why we did that, it's important to not only let it have enough time to dry to the naked eye, but also to cure and let it actually settle in. Cool. And this is another thing that also took me a long time to learn is don't wash the whole model at once, no matter how much you want to. Just do one section at a time, especially if it's hot outside, because it's going to start curing in different places, and that will give you different colors as the wash dries. It's basically like painting in like an app at 50% opacity. The parts that you cover twice are going to have twice as much kind of paint applied to it, and then it's going to look super awkward and terrible. Digging it, digging it.
Hans, it depends, I think, a lot on what the faction is.
Mm-hmm. What's the question?
So those are he's listed some colors. So I've got a color combo question: would neon pink and green armor with bright purple weapons look good? I think for something like Emperor's Children, if you had some noise marines, that could look dope. If you had some Kroot, that might look awful. I think it all depends on what the models are.
Yeah, I totally agree. Or if you were going to do it for the Kroot, I would say do something like ground it with natural colors that are sort of more normal, and then have this be sort of like paint that's applied, and it's very clearly paint.
Like face paint, that could be
like
cool.
Yeah, face paint. You could do some paint on like just like metal, things like that can help sort of helps ground it. But yeah, if it's like power armor on Emperor's Children, totally go for it.
Tau boys, do you mean like infantry or battle suits? Because I've seen some really cool looking, almost like cyberpunk-y battle suits. They look cool.
Even the warriors, if you did it right. Like what's the word? Like vaporwave.
Yeah.
I saw someone that was like explicitly doing that. It looked pretty amazing. All right, I'm scared. It's time. It's time to start on the head. And yeah, as I mentioned, also for this sort of putrescent flesh, I will also do the brown on top of it. The brown wash is just a good way of grounding things. And that was also a big discovery. I used to wash almost everything in black, and one, it just makes things dark, but also it's not the right color for most things, I would actually say. I'm doing this one super thin just because. I'm going to want to do some more airbrush on top of the tentacles. I think the body, I'm pretty happy with it, but the head is going to need some more. And this one's tougher because it is a bigger body part, right? I basically need to do this whole head at once, because you can see in some parts already like that. That's really, really scary. So I at least want to pull that out and let it sort of fade away here. And that way it's not as apparent if it starts to dry and starts to cure before I've even finished this top head part right here. Yeah.
Cell shading models. I know Brian's Tau looks at a distance like it was cell shaded, and I think it looks awesome. But I think to actually, I don't know if your question was literally cell shading models, that would be unimaginatively labor intensive. Like I couldn't even. Whew.
It would be super tough. I have seen the most prominent. Oh, what is his name? There was a guy that was doing orcs that like it blew up on the internet for a while. It was like black and white orcs. Called them the Inky Boys. So I don't know. Don't blame me for whatever comes up if you Google that, but that would be the place to look. And it looked really good, but it's definitely a lot of work. Like yeah, that'd be cool.
Nobody Google that.
Nobody do it. Oh no, there was another one at LVO last year. Was a Dark Eldar army that was done to the theme of Borderlands, and
cool.
It was nuts. And of course, it was all cell shaded because they kept it in that style. Like they actually converted them to look like the characters, but they also did it in the style of Borderlands.
I could see that's a really good fit. Dark Eldar and Borderlands.
Yep, exactly.
That's perfect.
Right. And you had like the racks were like the brutes and everything, and the psychos for the witches, I think, or something.
That all fits.
Right? Yeah. I was like, oh man, it looked really confusing to play against. I would have mixed feelings if I saw that at the table. I'd be like, oh my god, that's amazing. Also, what the heck is anything? All right, cool. There we go. That's our basic wash.
Wow, I find it hard to believe that just 90 minutes ago, this was all black.
Right? Crazy.
Now look at him.
He's all yellow.
Look at that tentacle man.
I like it. I like it. Yeah.
So are they Ultramarines? You tell me.
I know. This whole time, every time I look at them and debating, I think they will be for a couple of reasons. One, I love painting Ultramarines. Two, the blood would look good on them. I considered making them white scars, but then I'd have to paint white, like real white. Mm-hmm. So I think they're going to be Ultramarines. And yeah, we're going to go ahead and start on that. This whole wash needs to sort of settle before we do anything else. And that's not negotiable at all. So we're going to let that sit. We're going to come back, do a bit of cleanup on these boys, and then we're going to start the highlights. I've mixed a lot of different techniques to try to find out a ultramarine technique that works for me. And the one that I have, it's a little bit of a slate gray look to it. It's not the super bright blue like we've seen with Ryan's Ultramarines that I also helped paint, so there's that. It's a bit different, but I really like it. So yeah, let's see what we can do. So back to the airbrush. This is black from Game Air.
Raven Guard. They could be Raven Guard. Although blood probably doesn't show up too well on black.
Yeah, so the problem is I want something that's brighter so that the blood can actually show up on.
Salamander's green? You've been doing a fair amount of that.
That would have been super cool. I didn't bring my greens. Let's see. Do I see any there? No, I didn't. Let's get this black one way or another. Consider that. I'll be honest, that Salamander's green is actually really tempting.
When you're, I think, well versed in doing salamanders at this point.
Just to get back. Oh, we've had that matchup a couple times, and the Gene Stealers have always lost.
Well, you know, as it turns out, Flamers are pretty good against Gene Stealers.
Yeah, it turns out. Especially when they're shot point blank range in close combat. Like GSC is all about pinning things, and then the Salamanders are like, I'm not pinned in here with you. You're pinned in here with me.
And then he pulls out a Thunderhammer.
And that was the game that Brian was like, do I spend the points to do an auto like max shots with the flamethrower? He's like, no, double sixes. Cool. Just get your max shots anyways.
Typical Brian.
It's happened a few times on the show, I'm realizing now. We gotta keep an eye on that dude.
I think it's the dice. I think he's actually
They are.
He has a pact with those dice.
That's the crazy thing though. Like he rolls. Oh, a pact. I see. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what it would have to be.
They're actually living dice.
Because I rolled them and they're like terrible, and he picks up. He's like, oh, it's gonna be a 6.
I think he spends his nights in the studio trapping demons.
That's right. Exactly. Okay, let's do a bit of the base. Because I do think I am going to do these in salamanders, which means I won't be able to do them today, but it'll be totally worth it. So the base for this army, you can see it's just basic rubble. This one has a bit of corkboard and effects on it, but just we'll do some gray, and we do have some ultramarines. I mean salamanders peeking through here, but this is actually a good thing to show because all models have bases. And there's actually a couple things we can do with this. So I'm going to apply 3 layers to this, I think. You can do more if you want it to be fancier. This is another gray. This is Stonewall, I think. Yeah, Stonewall gray from Game Air. I've primed this in black. Obviously, you guys know that. You can do it with gray, but I like this because it lets me have a bit more fun with it. So what I'm going to do, when I do a base, I look for 2 things. One, I decide, do I need to create more momentum in the base, and is that possible? And what I mean by that is, for example, if you have a base that's pretty open, like these Marines, and I want to create the idea that they're moving very quickly. I wouldn't, and I didn't for the Marines because they don't move very quickly. But what I can do with that is, rather than just painting the whole base the single color, I can start to create another gradation. And as I mentioned this before, this is a big part in my technique, where I basically just create these different gradations in different parts of the model. So I would basically hit it from this angle and just make this front part of the base much lighter than the back. This whole thing would be a little bit gray, but the front would be much brighter, and that creates that motion. Now, traditionally, if I said I was going to paint Patriarch, I'd say absolutely going to do that. But on this model, the only part that we see the ground is the bottom. And it's the bottom and the back of the base. So I don't think it's really going to work for us here. So I think we're going to do the other technique, which is more so just focusing on lighting the center of the base and the model, kind of coming from a top-down lighting perspective, and just kind of create the sense of drama. I guess it helps a little bit with speed sort of coming up because of the light is, but really we're just trying to do some dramatic lighting with this. So let's see. So I'm going to be hitting this almost entirely from the top. I like to keep some of the black. That's nice and dramatic. And then for the base, I'm actually going to have most of the lighting right here. And this is one of those places that we've mentioned before, but we haven't really done it, where we're just ditching physics. Physics is the worst. Took that class. No. I actually really like taking physics. But we're going to put the lighting here, which of course is not realistic at all, right? We have the models on top of this. There would probably be a shadow, and the light is coming from over here. But what it's going to do is it's going to give us an opportunity to do some dark black shading around the edges. And this is a kind of classic thing you can do in like photography, where you create what's called a vignette. You darken the edges of things, kind of going to a black, and it just looks really sexy. And we can do basically the same thing with the actual base. And so we can sort of decide to do that and take advantage of what we have here. There's a lot of little bits in here that will come back once this. Some more here, really bringing these rocks up to almost a pure white. This gray is getting pretty bright. And again, keeping in mind that we're going to wash the whole thing, and it's just going to get dulled way back down. Hit a bit from there.
We are using water between colors and isopropyl alcohol sort of afterwards.
Yep, you got it.
Happening with the mic cutting is an internet thing, because I've been listening to the audio on my end for about an hour now, and I haven't heard any cutting, but I've definitely noticed people in chat saying that the audio's cutting.
Interesting.
So I think it's a connection between us and YouTube thing. I'll have to look into that in the future.
Yeah, thanks for letting us know, guys. The internet and the whole base still been a little spotty.
It's true.
So we've done that, and then we're going to now hit it with some dead white. Not the bone white, because we still want this to be sort of a gradation from like a pure gray, right? We don't want to add a little bit of yellow or brown, which is kind of where the bone white is headed. If you're familiar with the color wheel. And just a little bit of this. Cool. And so I am washing this with water. It can leave a little bit in the front of the nozzle. And so I'm just kind of running it here on my palette, getting that out. There is a decent amount of water there, but now we are back to just paint. And make this even brighter. You can see crazy, crazy bright. And then even a little bit right in the center underneath. Cool. Now we're going to come back with the black and essentially create that vignette look. We won't do it today because it needs to cure, but of course we'll top it off with some Nuln Oil over the whole thing. So there you go. I watched something other than with Agrax. But really it's with like grays and whites and blacks and stuff. Not even blacks, right? That's with blue. Right, okay. So we're gonna go ahead and this also can help do the rim of the base. Get this where you guys can see it. I do my rims pretty much all black unless I really need to distinguish them. And so this kind of does both jobs at once. I'm just going to roll this base, keeping the airbrush essentially in the same spot. You can see it's getting a little bit thick. There's a bit of shine there. So I'm just going to tone that back a little bit. Cool. So then we get that nice shadow right there. I really like that. And just going to hit up. I like that. And since we have the black, we're basically continuously repriming those space marines. I should just do it once, but you don't always have a plan with what you're gonna do, right? Cool. So we're getting close to the end of the stream, guys. So if you have questions you want to make sure you ask us before we finish up, go ahead and pop them now. Just gonna take a look if there's anything we can add while we're still here. But yeah, I'm pretty happy with how this is turning out. Yellow is always tough. Obviously, that's kind of the theme of the day. But the other thing that is difficult is to manage the brightness of it, right? I'll do models like this that turn out very, very bright, and it works. I'm happy with it for this model, but sometimes I want them to have a bit of shading. Like this one has a bit more dark shading underneath, and it takes a lot of practice to manage that too. So don't be afraid to try multiple models, especially with yellow. I can't tell you how many Space Marines I did before I did my actual fists, just trying them out with sometimes spare models, sometimes models that I would, just accept. I'm going to put multiple layers and then, that's it. But yeah, just practice that and finding, again, what works for you. So definitely recommend taking the things we talked about today if you're looking to paint yellow and just adapt them. So yeah, I was just thinking as I looked at how bright this guy is, I'm definitely going to do some edge highlighting along here, especially there's some nice kind of sharp edges. I'll probably do a little bit of yellow and then some white. And obviously all of these interior parts need to be hit.
Levi, that is a tough question.
Hit me with it.
So, are there any tips on getting a significant other into 40K?
I actually do have thoughts about that. So my main thing is find something about it that they might enjoy, and accept that. Well, one, if they already like happy with you doing it, that's already a huge thing. I think that's number one. It's just like them being okay with you enjoying this thing. But find if there's something they might enjoy, if there's a type of model, if they just like to paint, right? So my wife, for example, she just started off just painting. I was like, you want to try to paint this model? Like she did crafts and things like that, and there's actually a lot of similarity between those two. So it was a very easy jump from that to painting a model with no commitment, no expectation of playing the game, just painting them. So she has a bunch of Harlequins, hasn't really played 40K, and then just in the last couple of years started doing Sigmar. Now we're actually playing Sigmar and things like that, and that would be my recommendation, right? And some people, maybe they just like to actually play, and they just need to play with your models and things like that. I think everyone has different interests, and some of us are crazy and we like doing all of it all the time, and some people, it's just one particular thing. So that would be probably my biggest recommendation, is find the one part of it that they might be interested in and try that, and just sort of be okay that that might be the only thing that they actually want to do. Yeah.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of friction in 40K. Like getting started, there's a lot of barriers to entry.
It's a lot.
So just find a way to ease in,
Yep.
Don't start with 2,000 points.
Don't start with 2,000 points, ITC competitive format. I mean, heck, you might even try just like kilting and things like that, which for us, it can be like, well, that's really like 40K adjacent or something. But it's a great way to get people started, get them interested, because it is so overwhelming when you get started, especially if you've been doing this for a while like we have. It's easy to forget sometimes how much we learn and how much we do and how much effort we put in. So yeah, that's a good point, is starting positions. Yeah.
Could you pull out the Easy Bake Oven models again and just give us a quick recap?
Yeah, totally. That's a good idea. All right, order of the day, yellow. So to do yellow, you want to work off of a base of white. So if the whole model is going to be white primarily, and you want it to be really vibrant, I do recommend just priming in white. But if you prime them in black and then do the white with airbrush like we just did, that's totally fine. So white, orange airbrush, basically pick a spot and do a gradient from pretty much pure orange fading to white. That's the first or next step. Then you're going to hit the entire model, wherever you want to be yellow, with yellow. And I'll give the actual paints in just a second. Just hit the whole thing. It might take a few layers to build it up really nice and vibrant, but be patient. Then I'm going to wash. I wash mine in Agrax Earthshade generally. Be careful not to do it too heavy, otherwise it can be dirty or darkened. Maybe that's what you're looking for, but that's the basic idea. And airbrush can make it lighter. Once you've done that, you can hit it with some more yellow, just like the first steps. You can do some edge highlighting. White is excellent for yellow. And that's it. Just for my colors, the ones I used. So today we used dead white, we did orange, and gold yellow. And these are all game air. But honestly, whatever line of paints works for you, it's same stuff, different day. So hopefully that helps.
Awesome.
Yeah. Love yellow, not easy. Cool deal.
I think that's gonna wrap it up.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for hanging out, guys. Hope you enjoyed it. Hopefully you learned something about yellow. I got some work done on my octopus boy, and definitely hit us up. We'll probably be doing the same thing next week. And follow us on social media. Definitely send us pictures of what you guys are working on. We're always interested in that. It sounds like there's some really cool projects out there, even just from tonight. So thanks, guys. Stay safe. We'll see you next time.